virus. He doesn't have it, but he got exposed to it niece, I think, so he felt it would be best to stay home. So he'll join us.
I just got an email from my son. He and his wife are trying to repopulate the state. They have 11 children. But he just texted and said, oh, we've got COVID in our family, you know. And actually he said he hopes they all have it so they can get over it.
Yeah. That's what happened to the Skinner family who lives next to us. They all have it. They've got 10 or 11 children. All family. Your first night planning commission meeting. Yeah. The hope is that it won't be too intimidating for you. We just settle in and, you know, enjoy the evening and participate in our discussion. I know you haven't been involved in some of these discussions, and we'll try to add to that a little bit tonight. So you can make go from there. So, is Jeremy on there?
Jeremy is. I'm just making sure that they can all hear well enough and
Okay. We had a problem last time with us hearing what they were saying. Because it was coming through Jeremy's computer.
hopefully, Jeremy, are you
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Let's see. I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? I'm not muted.
Can you
Nothing?
turn up your volume, Jeremy?
Yeah, Jeremy, I can hear you.
Thanks, Steve. Steve can hear me.
Jerry, can you turn on your volume and we can see if we can hear you?
Let me call
Harry?
Jody. Call
All right,
Jody.
Bob, can you turn on your volume and if we can hear you? Anyone?
Jody, this is
hear
Ben.
me now?
I think your speaker might be muted, because I can hear Jeremy,
Jody, can you hear me?
and he can hear me.
It's not showing it's muted, but
I can hear you, Bob, but it doesn't sound like they can hear us.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
yeah.
Do you want us to do sign language?
Oh, no, I don't.
Do you want us to mute Jody?
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, we can
We
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, Jody. Can you
What
hear us?
I need to do is, but we can't hear you at all, which is really strange.
Hey, Bob, I'm on the phone with Jody, so we're trying to figure it out.
Thanks. Yeah, I just sent her a message.
We would like it if it was so quiet. I thought Jeremy was coming through really faint for a minute. Jeremy, you can hear us okay?
I can hear you.
Is your volume up?
Yeah, it is. We can all hear
Jeremy
you.
can hear us, it's just we can't hear them. In other words, the audio on my computer. Okay, so what I think I'll do is I will call in on our line here to the number, and then I'll put it on speakerphone, and then
Okay. Jeremy can call in on that. He's the only one, we heard Steve. Did we hear Bob?
Bob is here.
You can't hear Bob, right?
Yeah. We can't hear Bob at all either.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with the speaker on your side.
I'm gonna try unhooking from that HDMI and that new thing, because we may not be able to do it with this new setup without the amplifier in it, because we're only going off of internal speakers. And that may not work.
Oh, you know what, Jody?
Yeah,
Go down to your, can you share your screen? We had this happen on one of our other calls.
what about share sound?
Just share your desktop.
Yeah, I think it's going through the TV and we're not being able to do it. So I need to take it off our TV and just put our computer in the middle and.
Yeah. If,
Yeah.
Jody, before you do that,
Uh-huh.
share your desktop. Because I might be able to bypass it. Yeah, there you go. Jeremy just sent you a note.
Your sound set to your speakers.
Yeah, so if you click on the speaker button, then it'll have like where the speakers are coming from with a little arrow on the right hand side.
It says I'm sharing my computer sound. Hey, can you guys hear us now?
We can still hear you.
And we can hear you.
There we go. Awesome. Still working, Jody?
It's still working.
Good job.
All righty, there we go.
Okay, we'll move forward with games then. Call the meeting to order here, 7:10. For our public hearing and then moving into our planning commission meeting tonight. Sarah, would you offer a pledge? And then Mary, would you offer an invocation for us?
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our Father in heaven, we of course say in prayer this evening at the beginning of this Woodland Hills Planning Commission meeting. Grateful for the opportunity to meet together, to discuss relevant issues concerning our community. We pray that we might have positive discourse one with another, that recommendations and decisions that we look at and make motions on might be for the good of our community. We're grateful for our citizens, grateful for this wonderful state in which we live. We do pray for the wellness of the people throughout the world, that the challenges we face might be alleviated. Grateful for many blessings, and we offer this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We will convene a public hearing for the purpose of hearing any public comments regarding to a proposed city code, Title 11, which is on subdivisions, and Title 12, which is on stormwater runoff. So if there are any of you who are signed in, would like to make any comment or have questions about the subject of our hearings tonight, I guess let us know. Sherry, I see your picture there, but do you have any comment or questions that you would like to make or have?
I do the main things. My questions pertain to the, I guess, Plat A up here. Specifically our three properties, Tullers, Taylors, and Burgers. Since we've moved here, the city has been calling our, I'm going to call it a driveway, a private road. And I see in 11.5.2 that private streets are not permitted anymore, or they're proposed not to be permitted. And how does that affect the three of us up here as flag lots?
Let me comment on that. As far as the public roads are concerned, that is not a new ordinance. That has been in existence for quite some time in the city. I know that the city council has approved several private roads, but our ordinances at present don't permit that. As far as the city street up there, it's not a private road. So I don't know what the reference is to that. I know that Tuller's property has a little kind of curved road on it up there, which could be a private road because that's on their property, but it's not a public. If the road that I'm talking about is not a public road, because it's on their property. So
Well, that little inverted C, I guess, I don't know what to call it, backwards C off of Deep Forest Circle. It comes up onto our lot, Tuller's lot, and Taylor's lot. And we all need to use that to get to our lots. So would that be construed as a driveway then? Because our lot line does go down to Deep Forest Circle that includes that little, what we've been calling a private road that has a fire hydrant on it, that the city does not plow, that we have to take care of.
the only thing that would make it private is it's on private property.
Okay, well, it is on private property.
So
Yeah, Sherry, I think it would be a shared driveway. And there's others in the city, right? The Pratts have a shared driveway and others. So I don't know that this really changes.
Okay, do shared driveways have to have a fire hydrant?
they might, if the house sits far enough back into the property, there may be required fire hydrant on it in order to comply with our fire code.
Okay, so are we not considered flag lots, or are we considered flag lots?
You're not
Because we-
considered flag lots up there.
Okay,
Those three lots you're talking about, those are not flag lots.
okay.
Usually sharing a flag lot
just has a little width access road to the property. And that, therefore it looks like a flag or kind of like Utah upside down or something. So your lots would not be flag lots.
Okay. The other question that I had to do with hillside development on 11.5.7. That's being crossed out, I believe. Let's see. 11.5.7, yeah. And it's, is there no more hillside development?
A number of years ago, those hillside development standards were moved to the city's development and construction standards.
Okay,
So they're included, but not, that's considered an ordinance, but it's in a different location than what it used to be. That's why it's crossed out there. Yeah, but those still exist.
okay, so the zoning behind Deep Forest and Eagle's Nest, that's all zoned R2 PUD, that means that that can be developed as a hillside development?
Now, hillside development standards could be applied to some of that development. Generally, the development and construction standards apply to a subdivision when the developer is putting in a subdivision. Those hillside standards are reviewed as part of that process. And in some instances, those are used to determine what a buildable area is on a lot. If a lot is a steep slope, then that is not a buildable area and is indicated in the hillside development. So any of the hillside development standards can be applied to any part of the city when there's development going on. So that the PUD up there, if some of those hillside developments could be applied to lots. That's an issue that the city is looking at right now, because some of those standards, it's not clear whether they pertain to a single building lot or to the whole subdivision. And we're trying to sort that out so that it's clear to a subdivider or a lot owner as to which of those standards apply as they move forward with the development.
Okay, and that applies to city property as well?
Yes, it would.
Okay. All right, my last question for Title 11 has to do with 11.5.9, where non-motorized trails, hiking paths, and walkways, basically everything has been taken out. Has this been put somewhere else?
What is in Title 11.5.9 right now is a carryover from our existing old code, I'll say. There's new sections that have been written, and they removed from this document because they were new. But the intention is that they will be added once this title is approved by the city. We will present that additional information in a public hearing, as it is a land use issue. We'll present it as an addition to include in this title and take public comment on that.
But didn't that already happen when the master plan was adopted?
No, the information in the general plan is just that. It's information, and it's a standard from which the city needs to follow in development. So the things that are in the master plan is not an ordinance, but it's a guide for the city to follow. But what I'm referring to, it was in probably a 9-month ago edition of this Title 11, but it was removed when we decided to go with just as much as we could the old code. It may have been reorganized as part of the codification process. But our intent is to present that for public comment and add all or portions of it back into this section.
Okay, well, how does that affect, Wayne, the properties, and I'm talking about up in Thousand Oaks? I don't know about Summit Creek or any other areas in Woodland Hills. I just know about Thousand Oaks because that's all I've researched right now, where there are recorded trail easements on people's property. So taking this out right now without having anything else in means that ATVs can be used across these trail easements. Littering can occur, animal waste can occur. Everything that's been removed, I think now opens it up to people that have 10-foot trail easements on their property. All these things can happen.
They could, but there's limitations on that as well. Somebody just can't, because there's an easement on across their property, other property owners cannot trespass on that without some further city direction. We don't intend to leave this out for a long time, Sherry. Hopefully within maybe 2 or 3 months, that would be added back into this title if that's the decision that's made. So it's not going to be left out for a long time.
So can I propose that we leave it in till something else gets put in its place?
As your comment, certainly, but there needs to be a public hearing on it because it will be a change to our existing ordinance. So we'll take your comment though as a positive feedback that you would like to have that additional information on trails and walkways included back into the ordinance.
Yes.
Very well.
To protect the property owners that have trail easements on their properties, which also includes the city property now where the mitigation occurred, where the snake goes through it.
That is an area certainly that the city needs to give some added attention to have some uniformity with that and some organization and some established guidelines on the use of those easements that way. So.
And like I say, I don't know how this affects Summit Creek.
The ordinance applies citywide, but you have some issues up there that the city needs to further address as well. Any other comments, Sherry?
Not on 11, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ben, you want to go next or you want me to?
I was letting Wayne.
I'll let you go.
Yeah. I'm getting a lot of echo, sorry. Yeah, I didn't want to jump in front of Wayne if he was going to ask someone else, so.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'll do my best. There's a lot of feedback. So just in general, Title 11 includes a lot of things that we've already talked about, Wayne, related to private roads and gates and trails and all that. And so I don't know if this meeting is the meeting to go through all that in great detail, but we are obviously concerned about what we would be allowed to do in Summit Creek related to gates and private roads. With what's crossed out in Title 11, that does concern us because we do have gates obviously there already and some private roads that are existing and we would like to continue to be able to do so. But again, this may not be the place to go into great detail with all of the concerns and questions that we have. So
I know with what's in place, I don't see that changing despite the city ordinance, but it is need to have a larger conversation about it. And I think we were planning on doing that here in the near future to discuss those things. So
yeah, that's correct. And Steve might have some more comments too. I don't know how, there's the Mountain Villa overlay zone that does also kind of have language about allowing gates. but it would only be allowed on private roads. But if private roads are going away, then that becomes, I guess, null also. And so anyways, we can talk about that more.
Yeah, I see them tied together from your standpoint, so.
Steve, if you had anything.
Just a couple of questions, Wayne, in that, and actually, the entire committee is that, what do we do about the existing plat that's already kind of been approved, right? So that's the question we'll have to deal with. The other one that I think, going back to Sherry's question, and this is more of a, a question in 1155E. Sherry, you may want to take a look at that because it says lots must be on public streets. Each lot shall abut on a street dedicated by the plat or an existing dedicated street which meets the minimum width requirements. That would imply that if you have a shared drive, that you might have an issue there with not being on not abutting to a dedicated street.
So just a clarification on that, Steve, it says that each lot should abut the dedicated street, and all those lots do abut that dedicated street. So I don't think there's any issues with a shared driveway.
Okay, that's good. I just don't know where Sherry lives. So when she was talking about a shared driveway, and we had other shared driveways in the city, I just, that's just something that I just wanted to make sure that she knew about, right?
Okay.
And then the change to 1155, just to be clear, it sounds like the city is now allowing flag lots.
No, they're not.
Okay, well, it said where in the deletion there is flag lots shall not be permitted. So by striking it, does that mean that flag lots are in fact permitted? Because we do have in our preliminary plats, some, and what we're going to be showing to the city council, we potentially have some flag lots. So we need to understand that because the contours of the land don't allow for anything different. This is an 1155A.
What do you say?
It's 1155A.
1155A.
Yeah.
Says a lot arrangement, design and shape shall be such that lots will provide a compact body of land for building and be properly related to topography and conform to requirements set forth herein. Lot shall not contain peculiarly shaped elongation solely to provide necessary square footage, which would be unusable for normal purposes. We get into a situation where lot frontage is different than lot width. And lot frontage needs to be at least, it's either 60 or 65 feet. And if there's lot frontage that much, then it does not consider to be a flag lot.
Okay, and I guess my point is, Wayne, that's not really clear here. Maybe it's in someplace else.
Okay, I understand. We'll look at that. I'm thinking that somewhere else it says that flag lots are not approved. So that's
it may be, and that's the reason it was deleted here. But it seems to me that you'd want it in the section 1155 lots.
That understand.
So that's just a thought.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think just the big thing is, Wayne, we need to understand the implications on the development from the city's standpoint on our existing documentation and approvals as it relates to private roads.
Yeah, I know.
Specifically, so. As you can imagine, that's a very big concern to us.
I understand and completely, and I've been kind of after everybody to try to get together on this, and hopefully it's coming, we're doing that.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good, thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Wayne.
Any other public comments that anybody would like to make? Or questions? If not, then we'll go ahead and conclude the public hearing. 7:33. Thank you for everybody's comments. Appreciate it. Oh, wait a minute. I can't close it yet. I've got a couple of letters that I received that we need to read into the record on the subject of the public hearing tonight, so bear with me. One is from Tannen Fuja, and I'll read it in its entirety here. Thank you, Lori Thomas, for serving on the Planning Commission. I and many in the city trust you and respect your attention to detail and understanding of math. We feel that you, along with Jeremy Searle, are honest, even-tempered, and respectful members of the commission who will listen to the citizens and think the best of everyone. Thank you. I firmly believe that it is a very bad idea to remove the city hillside site development requirements from Title 11 and have them only in the building and construction standards. Other cities are not only protecting hillside regulations in their ordinances and subdivisions and our zoning, but are creating detailed zoning overlays to protect hillside safety. We should be doing this. Title 11 removes these hillside development requirements from our subdivision ordinances so that the city can more easily change them. This is wrong. We need these important laws to be protected from the whims of future city councils. Finally, the Planning Commission chair stated in the last city council meeting that there are still changes in Title 10 which were not part of our original ordinances, but he claims they are critical. What are these critical changes and why are they critical? Are they hidden critical changes in Title 11 as well? Perhaps the chair could be a little more transparent with the citizens. What are the critical changes in Titles 10 and 11 and why are they critical? Let me address some comments that Ken has made here before I go on to Megan Fuja's letter. He's made a point of thanking Lori and Jeremy, and I would like to add to that and thank Severin and Larry for all the work that they do on the Planning Commission, as well as I know Severin does a lot of work for the city and helping the mayor with a lot of administrative and personnel issues, and most do not realize or recognize that. But I would like to thank each of you for all the work that you do for the city. The city is not abandoning hillside construction regulations. They've been moved to where we felt they were better suited to be in the development and construction standards. They're not moved, no, they're not being moved now. They were moved months, if not maybe several years ago, into the development and construction standards. It is true that they may be able to be more easily changed there, but whatever changes are made are done in conjunction with the city council. And if they're land use, then they would require a public hearing as well. So I think you can rest assured that the hillside development standards are being preserved. There is some question about some of them, whether they pertain to subdivisions or whether they pertain to individual property during a building process. And we're trying to sort through those now, and so that they're more clearly identified as to which ones pertain to which of the development going on, whether it's an individual lot or whether it's a subdivision. In some instances, they may pertain to both. So the city has that under review. As to the additions that are anticipated to be presented with Title 10 and 11, and any change really is looked at as a critical change. And I'll give you an example. Through oversight in our existing ordinance that we have, which I refer to as our old ordinance, although the new one hasn't been adopted yet, there was oversight, and lots zoned R119 did not get included in providing a site plan to the city. So if you look strictly at the code, lots in R119 zone aren't required to provide a site plan. That was obviously oversight. We didn't realize it until we were going through the codification and changing and updating. So we've enforced that, however. Yes, lots in the R119 zone have always been required to provide a site plan, but by ordinance, when the R119 zone was adopted, it was left out of another section of the ordinance that required site plans. So those are just some of the things that we're trying to get cleaned up and into the new ordinance and codification. And that will be an ongoing process. Well, I don't think we've caught everything. We'll go through there's things here that will need further clarification, and we'll be coming back and making some recommended changes to these some of these zoning ordinances that we need to be more clear on, like Steve mentioned tonight. If maybe we need to be more clear on the flag lot issue if we've overlooked that part. So it's an ongoing process, and these ordinances will continue to be changed in many respects. So moving on to Megan Fuge's letter. She states, "Thank you for posting this hearing and appropriate notice on the Utah Public Notice website and through email to the residents. It would be helpful in future postings if there were more information included on what changes are being proposed, and if a link to the proposed documents were included in the email, including a document showing the proposed changes, and giving information on both the benefits and the drawbacks of the proposed changes. Regarding the changes proposed in Title 11, I am most concerned with the deletion of the hillside development section from the subdivision ordinance. The hillside development and hillside site development sections of our mandatory land use regulations are currently contained in the subdivision ordinance and the development and construction standards respectively. The hillside development section fits perfectly within the subdivision ordinance and its stated purpose. The hillside development section of the subdivision ordinance specifically contains information pertaining to how to determine which subdivisions within our city need to apply the hillside development regulations found in the subdivision ordinance and the hillside site development regulations found in the development and construction standards to each individual lot. In this way, each subdivision can be evaluated for whether the hillside site development section of the standards apply to each subdivision. Then the individual calculations called for in the hillside site development section of the development and construction standards can automatically be acquired for lots within those subdivisions, meeting the minimum requirements contained within the subdivision ordinance. This is clear and easy to interpret and apply. Deleting this from the subdivision ordinance would make it less clear that each subdivision should be individually evaluated for whether this mandatory land use regulation should be enforced against each of those lots within the subdivision. Maintaining this language within the subdivision ordinances will help the city determine whether a lot needs to be evaluated based on its overall slope, and in turn, whether it could be subject to hillside site development mandatory land use regulations. Keeping the hillside development language within the subdivision ordinance And applying that language to each subdivision will remove confusion over when to apply the hillside site development regulations to an individual lot. Thank you. I think I touched on that a little bit with commenting on Tanya's statement. And it is in review. We'll take a look at it and see. We want to do everything we can to clarify any ambiguity and questions that might exist in our ordinances. And so that's certainly one of the things that we are looking at, and LAI is helping us in that process. We will file those two letters with the minutes of tonight's meeting. And with that, then we'll go ahead and conclude the public hearing.
Wayne, can I just ask one more question?
Sure, Sherry.
Under the flood damage prevention in chapter 10, it mentions a lot of different zones. Is there a map that's associated with this that perhaps could be attached to this section?
There is a zoning map that we keep on file here in the city center. Whenever a change is made, we change that particular zone. Maybe it's just one lot, or maybe it's a whole area.
Okay,
So it's available here to look at.
thanks.
You're welcome. Okay. Moving forward. Let's talk a little bit about the Title 12, the stormwater. Lori, for your benefit, a number of years ago, the state gave a mandate to every city, and I think it came from the federal government and the state, to have a stormwater plan to prevent during construction the runoff of stormwater and potential hazardous materials into city drainage features.
Just during
construction. So when a subdivision is under construction, they have to do one of these plans. And when a builder builds a home, they have to have one of these plans. So the city has adopted having a plan, and up to now, we've used kind of a general outline that the state has given each city. But we need to have an ordinance now to address how the city is going to carry those functions out. It requires the builder to have a weekly inspection of their own facility. The builder is the one who puts forth the plan, or the subdivider, as to how they're going to monitor and meet the plan requirements.
if the water is flowing somewhere that.
Correct.
Is that okay?
It needs to be contained on the lawn.
It has to be.
Unless there's a feature that allows it to go into the street and into stormwater drains. That all needs to be not haphazard, but designed that way. In the newer parts of the city, we do. But in this, and up here, we don't. So the city is required to do its own inspection once a month of every site that is under construction that has one of these plans in place. We presently don't have a city inspector to do that. So what's been proposed is the city contract to a person who is certified and who has knowledge of that process, and to be a city inspector. Now, the funds for this can be billed back to the builder. So it doesn't cost the city anything. The builder would pay for those inspections, those monthly inspections during the building process through an advance payment to the building permit, another line on the building permit. And so as those inspections were performed, then the building inspector would get paid. And that fund would, the idea is the city can't make money from that, and the fund would be reduced according to the inspections that were given. Now, the city would have to set up some kind of a guideline for estimated time of of construction. I know Robert Nelson, as a contractor, he looks at about a 12-month time period for home construction. If you're an owner builder doing it yourself, never done it before, it's going to take longer than that. But I've talked to Chris Helvey, and there's a contingency fund built into the building permit. So if the builder takes long, if we decide, okay, let's pick 12 months as a time period. If the builder goes longer than that, then there are funds there that the city can continue to draw from to pay for the inspections. It'd just be less money that would be returned then to the builder at the end of his building permit process. And that's what Title 12 is. LEI has taken the state code and put it into our proposed new ordinance formats in Title 12. So that's what Title 12 is. When it was done, there was some question as to who in the city would be doing what. So there's a title of city floodwater superintendent or superintendent of this process.
Or overseer.
Overseer, right. And they've highlighted whatever that term is, knowing that the city needs to kind of establish what we want to call that person. Now, I've talked to Corbett, and Corbett feels that he has the time to oversee a building or an inspector for the stormwater.
As part of his regular.
As part of his regular duties that he has as our public works director. So that superintendent, well, whatever we call it, would fall in Corbett's domain as the responsibility goes. But the actual inspections.
The city could monitor that, which was our obligation.
Correct. Well, our obligation is also to have the monthly inspections. So Corbett would oversee that person doing it. We've myself and a couple other people have a person who submitted a person who does that, who's certified to do that, has submitted his resume and has offered his services for the city to do that. Right now, he does that for Highland, the city of Highland. And I contacted the city of Highland engineer and talked to him about it, and things are working fine with this individual in doing it. His name is
Mitch Hilbert.
Yeah, Mitch Hilbert. We looked at trying to find another person, but we're really unsuccessful. Many of the cities have their own, within their own city organization. But a few don't. One of the problems, Mitch used to work for this company that puts these plans together for the builder. And as Larry spoke with the Utah Valley Homeowners Association, the lady there made a comment that there's a little bit of question with conflict of interest, where the company is putting a plan together for the builder and then doing the inspections. So that's one reason that this Mitch Hilbert went out on his own. So there wouldn't be that conflict for cases or for cities that he's working for. So there is a little bit of urgency to this. Some cities the state wants cities to comply. They're not trying to find cities just to find them, but they're looking. Some cities, big cities, have taken kind of a laissez-faire about the whole thing and not done what they're supposed to do. And so I'll make that according to all fine over that. So we're trying to avoid that, and so we've got homes now. They have their own SWIP plan. You'll see signs out there, SWPPP. That's what Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, That's what that stands for. And it just, we're required to put this sign there on the building site so that city others know that they have that plan in process or in place. And subdivisions also have, they just have one plan for their subdivision work. But same process applies with them. But we haven't given as much attention to this as we need to. And so we need to move forward and get this ordinance in place and the inspections in place and that moving forward. I've talked to Chris Helby, and the city already has their own way of accounting that would meet what Mitch has been doing, providing monthly records of inspections that he's done and the billings to the city. And that's all done. Chris can handle that without any change or modification to our existing procedures related to similar things with payments. So I guess my suggestion tonight, I'm interested in your all views on it, but I don't see, other than tweaking the chapter a little bit to make some of those adjustments with the terminology and things, I don't see any reason why we could make a recommendation to the city to adopt the chapter with a few changes and to pursue hiring this fellow then to do the inspections. But I'm open to your thoughts and input on it all.
One question I have is, in looking over the plan itself, is the stuff in red just explanation, or is it part of the ordinance itself, or am I looking at the wrong one?
I think you're looking at the wrong. Title 12 doesn't have that. Are you looking at 11?
No, I'm looking at 12.
12?
Yeah.
There's a copy.
Does have.
Maybe I just printed a black and white copy and I didn't print a color. There's some
How
cross-outs.
big is yours? How many pages?
I think Lori's got a copy right there.
It's
Is it
not,
40 pages?
how many do you think?
Mine's 41.
It could be, these pages aren't numbered. No, there was another version that was
41 pages.
one I've got here is 45. But the one that LAI did look at is probably about 41 pages. So they've got cross-throughs on some things, cross-outs on some areas, and then they've highlighted where terminology needs to be changed with how we decide we want the city to handle it. I don't have any red on that.
Stuff like
Give me a
different
section.
departments that we don't have,
Right.
stuff like that.
Now, there's one part that I didn't think we had, but the city has. And that's, for example, the church. The church has a facilities, I forget what it's called in the title. Stormwater facilities. And so those are required to be inspected as well. The city center here has a stormwater facility that will need to be inspected. When I first saw that, my thoughts were taken to some public works facility that handles stormwater, and that's not what that is. We're building with a sewage treatment plant or something like that, but it's not. It's entitled. It's meant to be an individual stormwater, how it handles stormwater runoff, drains, and things of that nature. Now, Summer Creek, they have some of those in what they're proposing, the third new development of their facility that would need to have some kind of process for making sure that the water is going from there into the stormwater system. So does that answer your question?
No, I don't.
Do you have a section there that you're looking at particularly?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what's the difference between what's in black and what's in red.
Okay, give me one in red.
Public Works Department has created an inventory of.
What section is it?
That is 4.2.6.1.
No, this has got to start with 12, if it's in this chapter.
Huh?
If it's in, the stormwater chapter is 12, so it has to start with 12 dash something. Unless you're somewhere else. You mentioned 4,
Yeah.
well, health 4 is health and sanitation.
Isn't it? No, 4 is.
Four is
Stormwater
nuisance.
protection, SWPPP. Stormwater management plan.
What are you looking at?
What's the
This
number?
is the June
Tell me the number
2016.
again. 4,
Oh, he's looking at 2016.
This is the June 2016 ordinance.
it's not new, it's not the new proposed ordinance.
You're not looking at the new
This is the
proposed.
one you sent me. Steve Morrison signed it as mayor. August 4th, 2016. I'm assuming that all we did was take this ordinance and reframed it as Title 12.
Yeah,
This is the old ordinance,
okay.
what I have in front of me.
Severin, I don't think we have an old ordinance for 12. This is all new.
There was a thing that
There was
it
a
wasn't an ordinance, it was what do I want to call it?
policy and procedure.
It's something that the city adopted when the state came out, but it wasn't,
Says Woodland Hills City Stormwater Management Plan.
That's what it was. It was a management plan.
4th, revised June 2016.
that's the
Submitted
plan.
to the state of Utah.
And that's what's been now into Title
Well, that's what I said.
12. Okay, I wasn't,
Now,
yeah, you're
I'm
right.
assuming that this one is now Title
Yes.
12.
Yes, LEI took that and did Title 12 from that document.
Okay. All right.
Jeremy, from your background, do you have you had any experience with this, in your work, or things that would be helpful for us to be aware of? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. I don't do a lot with stormwater. Ted Mickelson's on the line. He's probably a better person to ask that question.
Ted, any thoughts?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So we do a little bit with these SWIP programs. We actually do a lot of SWIP design work for contractors on projects. And I don't know if you're looking for specific feedback, but obviously, you know, they're a good thing to have in place. And I think a requirement of I think it comes through EPA, federal government, through the state. Now, typically these apply to, from a federal level, their requirement is anything an acre or larger is disturbed. It's required to have these. However, each individual community can set their own guidance to having them. So we require them on smaller lots, and that's certainly something the city can do. So we may want to just clarify if these are going to apply to every individual home builder, because there may be cases where if a home builder is familiar with this, and especially developers, you know, if it's less than an acre, they may try and get out of doing them. But obviously they're important. Having the certified inspector is now also becoming required, and a lot of cities are getting their personnel certified. There's an organization in Utah here that does those certifications for the state to be a stormwater inspector. But I don't know if you're looking for specific feedback, Wayne, but certainly these programs are required, and it's something the city needs to do.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe just one, kind of the general, they fall under the Utah Pollution Discharge Elimination, something UPDS Act, and it's really what they're trying to do is prevent runoff from ground disturbance from going in and transporting sediments and additional sediments and stuff like that to our lakes and rivers and streams and things that impact our, our drinking water systems and stuff like that.
Yes, okay. Any other?
So when will we get a final proposed copy that we can work on and make sure that's what we want to do?
I can do it this week. With the changes in the wording and that sort of thing with it. I'm just trying to wonder if there's if we could approve it contingent upon approval of that document yet to come. So that the city doesn't have to wait till the third Wednesday of February to get a vote from us. I don't know. How you all would feel about taking that approach with this. Open thoughts. Usually we vote on something tonight, and what I'm thinking out loud about is voting on that, but that vote would be contingent upon a later approval of everybody, and saying, reading this, saying it, everybody an email, reading it and saying, yeah, that looks fine, or we need to tweak it here, or whatever. Take that approach. Jody, any thoughts?
I'm gonna leave that up to you guys.
If you're,
What does the city council need to, when did you want to give them the approved copy?
as soon as it's done, the city council, they gave us till the end of January to kind of put this in order. So, the second week in February, is when they would next meet. After that, they're meeting next Tuesday, and I don't know that we would be able to get it all together by then. But
So we could say that you approve it and we'll have the finalized copy by this date.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm approving, contingent upon approval of everybody agreeing to that final copy that we did. The other thing would be just to wait another 2 weeks into February.
The other thing, Wayne, is you have a possible combined work session where you could maybe do 5 minutes ahead of time and approve it at that meeting on the February 4th.
With the planning commission.
Hold a special planning commission meeting if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, we could do that too.
And that way you're not doing something contingent. And if you don't have something by then that's fine too.
Carries over.
Mhm.
I like that. I always hesitate. doing
Yeah.
things because
Yeah.
any little ridge could present some challenges.
Well, let me work on this, and then once we've all got input or agreed to it, then at that time, let's look at a meeting, another.
You could do a special one and even
Yeah.
do it 5 minutes over Zoom if you had to, if you felt it was necessary. Mhm.
Okay. Everybody comfortable with that? I am. You said it?
Yeah.
Okay. Jeremy?
I like that better than doing it contingent.
Okay, good, we'll do that then. I'll work on that and get a copy out to you. Next thing, Title 11. Personally, I was a little surprised for more public comments with that.
Well, it's been out there.
It has, yeah. I think it's pretty well detailed too. We've got a copy out there that with Mike Lawrence's, all of his changes, and then my comments to why those changes were made. And then there's a clean copy with, in doing the clean copy, I found a couple of other errors that need to be corrected. Again, this is not an end all. We'll likely find some other things, and Steve mentioned that tonight a little bit with his flag lots. I need to take another look at that and see, and maybe we need to tweak part of that.
Well, in the comments regarding the hillside development, so that is in our building standards section, correct?
Yes, development and construction standards. There is some confusion because while in the beginning of it, it says it's part of the subdivision ordinance, which normally is not a builder's, a home builder's part of the ordinance. There are things in there that do relate to individual building lots. So we do need to go through and separate those out, or say they apply to both, so that there isn't any confusion that we're talking about. LEI has started that process already. And I'm certainly open to you all looking at that too, and bringing that back and say, what about this? What about this? And we can discuss it together. Say, yeah, this applies maybe only to home building or applies to both. And so we need to make some of those distinctions, maybe make some changes in those.
So yeah, I concur with that information in the letters that I don't know that you can overdo something that is really relevant to the building construction throughout our community, because it's all hills unless you get down in the flat below. And it wouldn't bother me at all if it was covered in 2 or 3 sections.
Yeah.
And I have the opposite view.
Okay.
Well,
And that simply is, it ought to be covered in one place and one place only. Because if you've got it in multiple places, it adds to confusion.
especially if it's a little bit differently stated.
Especially that, yes.
Or if you change it in one, you have to make sure you go and change it in other places.
Yeah, or be specific and say, this applies to both building, an individual building, and subdivisions. So that it's clear that it pertains to both. If it does.
Yeah, wait, I agree. I don't think you want it in 2 different places. But having a clarification that it applies to both is important.
And I would concur with that. If it's explicitly stated in that.
We could even maybe have another section in that building and for development and construction standards that clearly applies to both. So it's in there, but it's a section that this applies to both the builder as well as the subdivider. We could, I would feel.
It's Title 10 right now. And in the codified document.
It's
It
not
really only applies to subdivisions. Not the construction standards.
Yes, but a person can just, you're right, but a person can subdivide their own lot and be a subdivider and make 2 lots out of one.
Like
Yeah,
we approved
Yeah.
earlier.
so keeping that in mind, yes. And there are some things in the development construction standards that I can see would equally apply. For example, we've had issues with slopes. Slopes, if it's over 35% in slope, it's not supposed to be built on. So the subdivider is supposed to identify those lots in the subdivision that, or portions of those lots that exceed 35%, and that's a non-buildable area. So that gets passed down then to a home builder. He can't build on that 30% greater slope. His building envelope can't encompass part of that 35% slope. So, however, the development construction standards also say that you're restricted, it's not prohibited, but you're restricted in slopes between 20 and 34%. The engineer has to, the city engineer has to approve that. So there can be a grading plan, possibly, for 20 to 34%. And we've done that with the subdivision, with Carroll Bell subdivision, that allows a certain amount of grading in that slope. So a builder could come in, if he's got 20 to 34% slope, he could come in with city engineer approval and do some grading of that slope, even though as a subdivider may have left that alone and not addressed it.
It's the subdivision that has been approved has in it, in each lot, what the buildable area is. And that buildable area is one that does not, should not, in fact, into a 35% slope.
That's right. That's right. But it could be, I mean, the subdivider, the city engineer may have identified the building lot, but over here, there may be 25% slope, but he hasn't identified that as a buildable area. However, this person wants to build a home and push it into that area. So with an engineer's approval for a grading plan, he may be allowed to do that. That's outside of the subdivision process. Now it's the builder who's looking and wanting to do that. So I think we may need to, kind of comment, we need to address those kinds of situations where maybe it applies to both.
So I feel like I'm flipping on this, but then it would appear to me that it ought to be a both. The construction, design and construction standards apply to the lot, and in the subdivision title, it applies to the development. And as long as we keep them consistent between the two, we should be all right. But if we get them out of sync, that's where I'm afraid we have problems. Well, it says in here, I can do it. Well, in here it says you can't.
Right. We don't want that.
It has to be consistent, which was the challenge we had with our table that you addressed 2 months ago.
Yeah.
It creates a conflict. Sitting conflict. Yeah. Could be, sure. So I think we approach it that way and look at those standards. I mean, right now, they're out of Title 11, so they're not germane to what we're wanting to consider Title 11, but we need to review them further. And I think it's good to keep them separate, but maybe, again, just thinking out loud, to have a separate section there where they pertain to both the builder and the subdivider.
Can we say that in the construction standard?
Yes. Leave it there.
Leave it there and just say it applies to both.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jeremy?
I'd prefer to leave it there and have it apply to both. If you have it in 2 different sections, yeah, we can maybe keep it consistent now, but years down the road, one of those is going to get changed and it's going to cause problems. I've seen it in other cities and other code. You don't want it in 2 different places.
I've talked to some cities. Most cities have development and construction standards separate from their building ordinances. So I think that would be in keeping to that, to keep those separate from the ordinance. But it's just-
Right. I agree with that. I'm just saying you don't want to have the same text or the same rules in two different places. But having the construction standards separate is, I think, is great.
Okay, so coming back to 11, any questions as to things in 11, or are we be prepared to take a recommendation vote on it?
So in relationship to the comment that was made about trails and easements, that's no longer in that section?
Correct.
Well,
The
there
trail.
is, no, there's still stuff in there.
It's just a 2-paragraph, but that was in our ordinance.
Okay.
What was
That
there?
would be.
Yeah.
Not now, but we need to put it in eventually.
Put it back in.
Yeah.
Well, but
We,
there's some new stuff that you pulled out,
correct,
right?
and that's why.
But the old stuff is still there.
Okay. But the new stuff was like, pick up after your dog, do this, do that, a lot of rules for hiking paths, non-motorized.
Which were discussed and added to it, but that were some of the objections that the people had when they were reviewing, comparing the ordinance that was 15 years ago compared to what they were doing.
Yeah, and we did have a discussion of it, and I think even a public hearing on that addition.
Right.
But in talking to the council, they felt, that's becoming an issue, let's remove that as an issue, and then we'll put it back in with a separate process when the time comes. So that's why that was it. But that was taken out. Yeah. It's the same thing that we talked about doing with the architectural and landscape requirements in the zoning chapter. We took that out and we'll look to put it into
Because it's a necessary part of what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, and I concur with the comments that those things need to be tightened up to protect the landowner, that there's those easements in their.
That's a strange, we need to explore that. I don't know. Those easements were created with Thousand Oaks. There's no other place like that throughout the city where these trail easements were created. And I don't know if they cross all the properties up there or just a few, or I don't know.
As well as city property, correct?
Yeah, that's what Jerry's.
Wayne, I can tell you where they cross. They start at the park and they come up Grizzly, and then they turn left up Eagle's Nest, go all the way down to Larson's property, and then head right up Deep Forest, the whole left-hand side of the road, up to the easement that the city has to access the water tank. It's everyone's property on those sides of the road.
Okay. It's interesting. We'll have to look at that.
And that would have been on their plat when they bought their property, correct?
Yeah. Should have
That's
been.
correct. It's on the recorded plat with the county.
That's ironic considering the discussion we've had about trails with many of those residents.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on 11? If we take a vote on it?
So the stuff that's in 11 in red now in the final copy are those clarifications that where we have made adjustments in processes.
Minor changes to, I say minor, but critical changes.
Yeah,
As we reviewed it again, see some of those areas we needed.
like we gave, instead of 1 year to do the improvements, now they've got 2 years.
Yeah.
And there's one that talks about the health department, and we added as needed. It's not all the time that you need the health department approval.
For the septic. There's one other change that we need to make to 11 also, that it's probably in it.
There's the private streets.
Well, yeah, but beside that, there's maps that are associated with natural hazard studies. Right now, we've just put the maps in there. These are recognized geotechnical maps from civil engineers that have done these studies. And we want to make them a part of this chapter. And to the point of the new maps are done, we automatically adopt those into this chapter. But those will guide the city and where there's hazards, whether they're earthquakes or avalanche or other such things. So we want to incorporate those into it. We just kind of attached them. We did that with the old chapter and carried it over, but I'm gonna want to put a particular section in there that clarifies what they're there for, and that we adopt new maps as they become available automatically, so we don't have to keep amending this just for new maps. So that'd be the only addition to what, other than these redlining comments that they're in there now.
Wayne, I'm always a little hesitant to attach maps to city code. Just because of how often they either become out of date or are updated by, studies or things that engineers look at. So I assume that anytime those maps are updated, that they would have to go through and reapprove the adjustment to the city code to replace those?
That's what we have to do now. And actually, this recommendation has come from the city to handle it this way, with the statement that every time a new map is done, that it be automatically updated with, the updated map would take the place of the dated map in that file.
Could you refer to a URL? I mean, Jeremy, that may solve part of your issue if you can just reference a URL in the code, and that way, until the URL changes, you wouldn't have to worry about it. Then you just update the URL. I don't know, it's just a thought.
Yeah, Steve, that's sometimes done with URLs or kind of adopted maps, and then where the maps aren't part of the city code, they're just kind of either part of a master plan or guidelines or something that the city has, that those can be more easily updated as opposed to modifying the city code. It doesn't have to be that way. They can do it like Wayne's proposing, but it seems like it's often done that way with cities. Make it a little easier.
So I guess I'm a little bit confused. Do the maps then become part of the city ordinance, or do they become a guide or a reference based on the city ordinance?
They're used as a reference for the geological data that's included in them.
So it gives, with the map, you get a better understanding of the ordinance.
Yes. They potentially could be used as well if a map doesn't show a fault area, that we don't require a hazard study of that area. Because the maps
Right.
don't show that there's a fault there, so to speak. So they would be used integrally to the chapter. And then in turn, that benefits, I mean, the city is paying for these maps, but that benefits a builder, then they don't have any recognized hazard in their building lot, then they potentially
When
wouldn't.
they don't have to spend $5,000 or $10,000
For
for
an assessment
it.
stuff, yeah. So the city has accepted these and recognizes their, I mean, it's a Geostrat is a company that's preparing these, and they submit them to a lot of cities and everything too. I mean, that's part of their business that they do with these, all these studies and everything that they do. So there's a benefit to make them, I think, useful. My view is that appropriate to include them as part of our reference in our ordinance.
And so if we make an
The appendix,
They're shown here as attachments, so we could identify them as attachments to the particular chapter that they would pertain to.
Can you update those?
Those will be updated as we receive them, because we're not, they do them, I don't know, what, a couple times a year, Jody?
It just
Once a year?
depends. Yeah. I mean, I don't think the hazard map has been updated. Yeah, maybe 3 years, I think is the last one.
So again, how would we word the motion to, as we make a motion to the city council, we make a motion to go ahead with
Chapter, or Title
Title
11,
11,
and to include incorporation of the maps in that title with,
to include the maps as attachments, or to be
and as they are updated to incorporate to it.
Be updated as they're updated?
Yeah, update, well, yeah, update the chapter as the maps are updated. Accept those as routine changes. You're the wordsmith, Mary. And Lori too.
well, I'm just, I have like 3 or 4 questions or concerns. I mean, I do have a question or a concern about going back to what the ordinance was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago and not having the things that have had public meetings and discussion and approval of city councils, but because they weren't part of the ordinance from 12 or 15 years ago, we go back to that for the codification. And then also including the maps, it's pretty overwhelming for my feeble mind to wrap around. But I mean, we have discussed it now in 4 different planning meetings. We have had 2 public meetings on it.
Let me share with you what happened last city council meeting.
We know it's still at square one.
Well, almost with Title 10, for one thing. The mayor is supposed to issue a joint letter with Sharon Wright to go out to all residents, I guess seeking further input, further comments from the residents on any thoughts they have about.
It's like they were listed pros and cons.
Yeah,
So
but they're seeking comments from the city residents on it. This is after we've held like 3 public hearings on it, the city has. And it's trying, I know the purpose, I'm trying to bring a consensus with some individuals about it, but what the city is supposed to do, the city has done. City, I guess, I mean, yeah, we followed the
Part of
process.
that process, exactly.
And so I kind of, and also with the recommendation that we made for the public facilities. They weren't, I can't say that the city council wasn't happy with it. One person wasn't happy and no one wanted to make a motion to put it to a vote, whether to approve it. And I don't know why, but they didn't discuss an alternative. A city council person could have easily said, well, I don't agree necessarily with what you did. How about if we did such and such? That wasn't ever put forth. So it was recommended that it go to the select group of residents up there for another committee meeting. Going to come back with a recommendation to the city council on what they thought of the recommendation or something different. I was asked for the planning commission to be part of that. And I respectfully declined. I said, we've already done that.
Right.
And so, anyway, that's where that went and is now, waiting for a response from them. I tried to school John Wallace, who's kind of put in charge of that citizens group. I sent him a few emails, just kind of pointers to be aware of and, in doing things. So, as we sit here and talk about Title 11 tonight, whatever recommendation we make, I'm not sure how well it's going to be received or whether they're going to want to do the same. One of my concerns is these Title 11 and 12 are critical to city development. Parts of it we've kind of been working under as, I guess if you want to say outside of the old ordinance a little bit, but I think to the benefit of everybody. And that's making me uneasy. In doing that, if we continue to move forward with no resolution to adopting a new ordinance, I almost feel like, well, maybe we really need to go back to the old ordinance. Whatever they were, as bad as they were, and that's what we need to follow. Others don't share that urgency that I have in looking at it that way. But that's me.
Right.
So anyway, that's 11 and 12 would be the last ones to do and get them out there. And then we can go back and perfect them as best we can and make changes or tweak them however we need to do that with further public hearings and so forth. So I work with them a lot, so I probably feel a lot more comfortable with them than anybody else here. And I understand that. Jeremy has worked with them quite a bit too. But,
For discussion, we did Title 12 first. And then we discussed Title 11.
yes.
And then we've got for business to review recommendations for the SWIFT program and city inspections, which would be part of that.
Yes, that would be basically going forward. I mean, we could have a special meeting on that, but basically that would be recommending that the city hire an outside contractor to do those inspections, etc.
Well, I'd be happy to make a motion to the city council that they approve Title 12 regarding stormwater.
Let's put that off until our special meeting. Once
Okay.
I've drafted some changes to that,
Oh, that's what I'm sorry.
so we can discuss that.
Yeah, I've got a note here, wait until our special meeting.
So transfer that to 11.
Well, I'm not sure I can word.
Is there anything you're against?
Well, I just
What's your
worry,
concern?
well, the thing that I'm concerned about is we're reverting to something that again is 4 or 5 years old without modifications and changes that have been approved by the city council. Because it wasn't in the old ordinance, even though it is part of the new ordinance because it has been approved. It just wasn't written down in the old ordinance because it hadn't been approved by the old ordinance. So yeah, that's a little bit.
And let me just add a little bit to that. The thoughts we had was to approve it during the codification process.
Exactly.
And that's when things kind of blew up with new things there that caused people some heartburn. So that's why it didn't. It got approved, but then the referendum happened and so it went away. That approval went away.
Right.
So that was removed as other things have been too.
So now we're at the point that titles 1 through 9 have been approved in the codification situation. And so any changes that we make, which I think is great, because now we can research it, we can find it, we don't have to look through 20 different places, and we don't have to waste Jody's time finding things, reviewing her history and experience or anybody else. It's too bad that they didn't approve the work that we did on Title 10, but that's their prerogative. I mean, we
Hopefully that's in the near future.
Again, Wayne, help me understand on these map attachments, how that fits into quote the ordinance per se.
Where in the ordinance, I have to look back there.
There is a section in the ordinance, Title 11, on natural hazard and flood hazard studies.
Right. That's a chapter.
And so the maps then
Apply to that.
apply to that.
Right. It would be referenced. These are the maps provided by.
And not only referenced, but
They can be
updated.
used to assess where the natural hazards exist within the city. And they would be updated from time to time as necessary.
Well, it's hard for
When
me.
changed.
Right. It's hard for me to apply the critical model of my life in making decisions, and that's to keep it short and simple.
That's something I think we all strive for.
I've always heard it with one other
Yeah, I know.
word added.
People. Well, let me take a stab at it. Okay. I move that we recommend to the city council to approve Title 11. That recommendation includes map attachments as appropriate that would be referenced and updated, and the updated portions would be included then. That makes sense?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
I was just going to say, as new ones become available.
Available. Sure. Okay, at that as available.
All right,
You got that down, Jody?
It's gonna be on the,
Yours truly, John.
yeah.
Jeremy, anything to add to that?
No, I think that's
Motions?
great.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you feel comfortable going, Lauren, on it,
I,
from our discussion?
I,
Or you can,
I
if
do.
you want to reserve, I understand.
I feel like I don't understand it very well, but I understand what your intent is, yes.
Okay. Very well.
So we'll give that to the city council to peruse.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
And then as you get the Title 12 solidified, and you get that out to us, we can respond back to you. And, like Tony says, if we need to, in our dual meeting, take 5 minutes and approve that recommendation to them as well.
Okay, that sounds fine. Good for that.
Can we take a 2-minute break? We need to wet my whistle.
Sure.
Wash my face. I'm feeling
We have, the reason I'm bringing this up, we have an ordinance about it, but one of the lot owners, and has a home in Summer Creek, wants to put a rather elaborate accessory building. He's got 2 lots. And so he's got the room to do it. He says he's checked with Summer Creek and there's no conflicts that they have with their CCNRs with him doing what he wants to do. This accessory building would be rather elaborate. It will not be a residence, it will not be lived in, but kids might sleep in there, grandkids, when they come over. He wants kind of a gathering place. So there'd be a kitchen likely there, a bathroom, and a loft area, place for family gathering. Build it according to code. It's going to be more than 200 square feet. So it'll be inspected, electrical, plumbing, the whole 9 yards. Nobody will live there, but it would be a place from time to time where grandkids might be staying overnight, sleeping in the loft. So I told him that I would check with planning commission members to get feedback before he went to the extent of having plans drawn up and everything to provide to us to review for approval.
Now, wasn't there a concern on the slope of that adjacent property?
This is not that one.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah.
That's a different one.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that those kinds
So
of
that one
issues.
was attached.
Severin raised a question a little bit with sleeping overnight, sleeping quarters. How close does that come to
Because the
residential?
accessory building ordinance says it cannot be a dwelling unit.
Right.
And if they're sleeping in it and have a kitchen in it, how do you say it's not a dwelling unit?
So what are the requirements for a dwelling unit?
You can't put a dwelling unit there because there's only one dwelling unit allowed. That's a
On
residence.
these 2 lots?
Because he's
It's
combined
combined
in one lot.
into one lot.
I mean, my suggestion is they do what the Crowns are proposing to do. And that's attach it to the other building. And then it's one structure. And it's separate. You know, you can have a tunnel, you know,
Yeah,
Whatever.
maybe.
a breezeway that goes to the other part of the building that wouldn't have to be, you know, they could use it only when they needed to use it. Otherwise, it would be, like some of our basements. We turn the heat down and we don't use them unless somebody is coming to visit.
In my mind, I can see a distinction. Nobody's living there. Somebody's staying overnight. So I make that distinction with a dwelling. We really don't have, I don't think any of our definitions are, we don't have a dwelling unit definition. It's kind of, I'll assume one.
And I guess my concern is if there's a sleeping area, if there is a kitchen, how do you stop them from not using it as a dwelling unit?
Well, one thing is their CCNRs won't allow it, so he'd be in violation of CCNRs if somebody.
And that's not our concern.
No, but that's enforceable.
Where'd you come from?
with
You say we're ready, right?
Steve?
What's the question, Wayne?
I was just getting ready.
We've got a guy who wants, have you heard our discussion at all?
Yeah,
Our question is how do you keep somebody from making a dwelling unit out of what they're proposing when they really have all the facilities on site for it to be a dwelling unit? And I don't know that it's possible to do that.
The real question I have, Wayne, is do they want it to be a dwelling unit or not want it to be a dwelling unit?
No, they don't want it to be a dwelling unit. They have no plans for it to be a dwelling unit. They said they've checked with the CCNRs that you guys have, and it wouldn't allow it to be a dwelling unit by your CCNRs. So I guess our concern is what could happen.
Can you remind me who this is, Wayne? Which lot?
Yeah, it's
Chris,
yeah, Dave Tanner. Is it Dave?
Yeah.
Dave Tanner.
oh, Dave Tanner.
Yeah. He's combined two lots already into a single lot, so it doesn't allow him by our ordinance to have a dwelling unit.
But the point, I guess, the point is, is he putting bedrooms in it or no?
No bedrooms, just a loft. There's a loft area. And that's where he said his grandkids would possibly sleep on sleepovers. There's no bedroom, but there's a bathroom and a kitchen. We're faced, we know we have people renting homes here now. And, unless there's a complaint, the city doesn't investigate those.
So accessory apartment issue.
Yeah. So I think it boils down, I guess in my view, anybody who can violate an ordinance, we can't keep people from doing it. On the outset, we can't enforce the ordinance.
I appreciate the fact that they're doing it the right way. They're not trying to go behind backs and do this.
Well, it'd be difficult for them to do that in light of what they want to do. You're gonna have to sprinkle it, sprinkler system in it. It's gonna cost them, probably $150,000 to put that kind of a building in there. Bathroom, all the facilities and stuff. It's not an issue. So.
I'm not opposed to it.
Wayne,
Yeah.
I'll just speak it. I'm not opposed to it. It appears like they're meeting the ordinances. They don't intend to use it as dwelling units, so I don't have an issue with it. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm like Jeremy, do we have a reason to not take him at his word? No. So he said it's not gonna be a dwelling unit, meeting all the other requirements. So,
So if he sells, he has to make sure that the new people know that it cannot be used as an apartment. And does
Yeah.
the city need to worry about future use like that and how it would be communicated? to
it's
the
much
owners?
like homes here, a person sells a home, he's got a renter in it too.
Hmm.
You know, yeah, the renter's not supposed to be there, but unless there's a complaint made, we allow it. And Carrie Malkovich, let me share this with you. She stays connected with all the political stuff that's going on, including the legislature. And she said there's going to be a lot of discussion this year about low-income housing. And it's likely that the legislature is going to recognize apartment, I should say, second dwellers in a home as accommodating low-income housing. And even to the point of cities may not be allowed to prevent that anymore. So,
So having freeloading grandkids keep there would be good.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's.
grandkids have always kind of been the exception because they're part of the family, you know, but, yeah,
Well, and that's the accessory apartment ordinance that we worked on. Provided, you know, there were standards when it really was as an accessory apartment as opposed to extended family living in the area.
Yeah.
And the outside access door, walking door was if your family's living in the basement, like I've had
yeah,
families, you know, it's some of my kids living in the basement for long periods of time. And we built the house with as many bedrooms as we did to be able to do that.
the family.
Yeah,
But the city council didn't pass it because there was such disagreement on all particulars that everybody wanted included in the ordinance, so it was never.
so sitting out there is a proposal.
So if you don't have any objections, I mean, we're not approving the building tonight, but I can get back to Dave Tanner and say, go for it, going, you know, what you want to do.
I mean, well, not we, but the city
Yeah,
will still have their review.
yeah. And,
They have
yeah,
the building permit.
exactly.
I mean, my concern really is the future. And the Tanners will not live there forever. And how are you going to prevent the next people that buy their house to not turning it into a dwelling unit?
You can't. Just like everybody that's renting their basement out to somebody now. Unless you act on specific information and a complaint. The fact that it's both against both CCNRs and city ordinance, I think there's an extra level of protection there a little bit. With it, so. Okay, appreciate the discussion and I'll let them know. Building height ordinance. I think we're getting close to the time when I'd like to, this is a separate discussion, or I could probably talk to you, we're not going to decide on it tonight as a required public hearing, but I can spend some time with you and update you on some history and stuff like that. But I've looked at what Jeremy gave us last month from Park City, and I think that would fit what would be good. It's pretty straightforward. It's a little long, but it's detailed enough that I think it's clear as to what is meant. And it would cover both an elevation kind of house going up a slope as well as one on a flat land. So would address both of those. I would have an additional suggestion is we get rid of storage, the starter requirement for calculating height. That just
Okay,
complicates.
never were really together anyway, were they? Technically.
Yeah, they were. And that was one of the problems with it. So we still leave the definition of what a story is, but it won't be part of the height, building height ordinance. So,
One of the things that I think concerns me is that I just pulled up the schematic. I'm not sure how we handle where the lot fronts on the slope. I mean, where the front of the house is level and then it goes down or it goes up, that's clear. But what if the front of the house is built on a slope like this?
it can still be laddered in a way. They'd have steps inside the house to go from one level to another. But it would be kept in this relationship as it goes up the side of the hill.
So that schematic, if we view this then as the front of the house, instead of it being down on the bottom, like this would seem, the front porch seems to be down here or up here, one of the other. Now, whether the entrance would be on this side, if the entrance is on this side, then you're saying that it's still taken care of.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Wayne, can you go through what the proposal is, just to be clear?
Yeah, I've got a copy of something that Jeremy got from Park City. And also I got from Price. And he's supportive of this. Let me find it here. I don't know how to show this to you, Steve. Maybe. Is this?
It's the one that he submitted to us.
Yeah, that's the one that we put the
Yes.
supervisor process.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
See, we do listen to you sometimes.
Well,
I'm
I
always
just wanna-
agree with you, but we listen.
that's, every once in a while, I don't even listen to myself, so.
So if we're all good with that, we may look at that, putting it on the February public hearing agenda.
Okay.
So, because that starts to become important. We've got a lot of people standing in line here for building and things, and so I want to make it clear. Okay. Lori, did I send you a copy of the bylaws?
Yes.
Okay. Have y'all had a chance to look at the bylaws? Any questions about any of other things that we need to be following this?
I sent 4 or 5 comments, right? When you first did that to me. I sent back some information on the bylaws.
Give me an example.
So something was interesting. Did you have your comment?
Do you have it there? You may have, I don't specifically remember. Did I respond back to you?
Yeah, I think you said, yeah, thanks, Larry. I guess I mean, I thought it was good that we reviewed some of those things because I hadn't even thought of some of that.
Okay, okay, now that you say that, I remember that.
I mean, in there, it says we're supposed to review it once a year.
Yes.
So,
rather than sit here and read the whole thing, it's been my practice to send it out. If you have comments or concerns, bring them back and discuss them. It is a little lengthy.
It's only 4 pages, isn't it?
Oh, no. Six, 7, 8, 9. Talks about voting procedures.
Two-sided.
Yeah, okay, two-sided, yeah, only 4 pages, two-sided. Yeah. So, anything there that causes anybody concern or?
I think it's good. But like if there were 2 things, I don't remember, so I'm not gonna worry about it.
I have your email here, don't you?
Just, yeah, it was only like,
You said, have we ever had any alternates as explained?
yeah, it talks about alternates.
We did a long time ago, we had an alternate and it kind of fell by the wayside because they never came. And so they decided they didn't want to be part of the planning commission anymore. There was never any need to form to fill in. So they said. No. So that was like section 4.
Yeah, said A10, this is important for me to know, that's on filing of recorded plans. Okay. Let's see, C1, good to have a guide for order of business. Section E on motions, good for me to understand and follow.
Right, and it did say that if you abstained, the chair was supposed to ask why you abstained. You couldn't just.
I think the only one we ever had abstain was Jeremy one time. And I don't remember why. I remember that, Jeremy.
I don't remember.
Against it.
Well, there was one time it seemed like he abstained, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember him abstaining.
Okay, maybe not then.
I don't remember abstaining either. I think it was just I didn't agree with you guys.
Yeah, I remember that. So, okay.
Support trails.
Was that what the issue was?
Yeah.
That was one more.
Your last comment was section I on yearly reading, reviewing, and discussing.
Right, good to do.
Reminder to us all, I mean, so. And I don't object if any of us feel there's a conflict in something that we're voting on. I think it says in here where it's other material, like you can be part of the discussion, but just then refrain from voting.
Recuse yourself.
So. Okay. Any questions, Lori? You got a chance to look it over?
Yeah, I read through it.
Okay.
Made sense. I
Okay.
I did notice in here, it said something about interrupting, which I need to make sure we're coming.
We're pretty flexible here. There's always time to talk things, so that doesn't really be a problem or an issue. Okay, the next order of business is then, as required by our bylaws, as we've done each year, is to elect the chair and vice chair.
I nominate Wayne Franson to be the chair, and I nominate Larry Henry to be the vice chair.
I'll second that motion. How do you feel, Larry?
With my hands.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Are you good with that? Sure. Jeremy will be leaving us in the near future here, so Jeremy's been serving as a vice chair in the past.
That's the only reason I didn't nominate Jeremy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, no opposed, so we'll go for another year. Under miscellaneous, I already shared things I wanted to let you know under miscellaneous about where things were. When the city council made the decision that they made, and so we're just waiting on them for that.
Just for my information, kind of separate from that. So we have, what, about 15 to 20 new homes being built in Woodland Hills?
Jody knows best.
Yes,
In that area,
and another 10 or so in
in the process.
getting ready to get permits.
So I noticed that there are 2 big homes down on Nelson's.
Yes, in the Four Seasons subdivision.
Yes,
Mhm.
and apparently they're digging for another one. a new
Yes.
foundation. And then several more in Summit Creek, and I guess a couple more here in the city, so.
Yeah, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 more that are getting ready.
Are most of those Summer Creek, Jody, or some thousand road?
I don't think so.
They're all different places, yeah. Maple Ravine, Eagle Nest, Sky Lake, Autumn Blaze, Deep Forest, Broad Hollow, Eagle Nest, Oak.
Just finished the one on Spring Drive. Ellsworth.
Yes, Ellsworth is done. And then 2020, we issued 20 permits.
Oh, that's good information. So 2020 and 2020, so are we 21 and 21?
Mhm. Then we've got some remodels in there. We've got a couple of solars, accessory buildings. Yeah, there's,
And so far this year, snow removal is not going to break the bank.
no. Well, we'll wait and see.
Yeah,
There's a line
but
of
I mean,
storms. Up until this point, no, we've done really well. I think we're at like,
But I worry about not me personally, but the whole valley not having water.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how that will impact the water coming out of Maple Canyon. It
shouldn't.
hasn't ever been affected by.
it's never
That was
affected it.
deep enough that-
And not only that, most of the water we're pulling now is we're pulling out of the new well. I mean, we're 100% operational on that new well up there.
Right.
So we're not even running the Maple Canyon. We're not taking water off the Maple Canyon well right now.
Of course, there's a lot more capacity.
Mhm.
to go with that. So,
So we won't have the red flag.
No more red flag, yellow flag. That was before your time. Green flag at the mailboxes.
Oh. I guess I'm a newbie. I won't get this.
Yeah.
Anything else that bring up and discuss at all? Question?
It does say in our bylaws that to close meeting, you have to have a motion. I find that interesting because Robert's Rules of Order said to close a meeting, the chairperson do that at any time he or she desires.
They kind of do a motion. You don't have to, I don't think you have to have
You don't have a vote,
Right. Just a motion.
just a motion. Or if you're on Zoom, everyone just logs off and the meeting's automatically closed.
Jeremy, any questions you've got or comments?
We'll let you make that motion if you want to.
Oh, I'll make the motion. I move that we end the meeting.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.